Okay, it's saying it's going live. So if you have your phones, you should be able to look on there. And please put your phones on silent, like Chente said. I'm gonna give people a minute.
Hello? Somebody say something. I think I went too sad.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. We're about to start. We're going to give everybody an additional minute to get yourself situated. We have a powerful interview tonight. Give me 1 second. Hey, welcome everybody. Good evening. This is Citlali from Mexican Excellence. Welcome to our live interview with activists, with direct descendants, with the nonprofit organization Buried Under the Blue. Before you meet our interviewees tonight, our activists, our community heroes that we have joining us, I'm going to give you a little bit of the background on how this all came to be, why we're here tonight, what was my personal, experience with this, and what my intention is as someone that's bringing forward this conversation. My guests, can y'all nod your head if you can hear me okay? We're all good? Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Okay, so to begin, let me just go ahead and introduce. We're going to be doing this for about an hour and a half from 6:30 p.m. There is a lot to discuss, to talk. I'm going to go ahead and interview them with the basic questions that I have, and then we're going to be looking at the who are checking in, who have questions. I also had people email me at questionmex@yahoo.com. So I have questions coming in from two places. We have questions on YouTube Live, and then we have questions on my email, which is questionmex@yahoo.com. You can still get your questions in that way. Okay, so let me talk about what my intention is for today. Growing up in Los Angeles, Tongva territory, this is what I knew, right? Everyone that's associated with being Mexican, automatically you're a Dodger fan. That was my experience. My family grew up from South Central LA, Compton, Watts, Bell, Cudahy. So that's what I grew up with. That's what I knew. That was like a given, right? You're Mexican, you're brown. Okay, you're a Dodger fan. That's how it functioned in my own growing up, in my particular history. And I know a lot of people can relate, right? So this tells you that there's a lot invested in this team. It's seen as, oh, the Mexican team, right? They support Mexican folks. They support the brown community. That's the narrative that they like to give us. That's the narrative that they like to portray, which is why you see images like this, right? You see images of Dodgers through the Mexican flag. You see jerseys, right, where they're bringing in Mexican colors. They're bringing in Mexican players. They're bringing in this whole enticement of Mexicanness, right? And as an underrepresented community, obviously that's attracted to our people. That's attracted to us. We see representation. And they lure us into that culture, right? Because we feel seen, we feel heard, we feel like, oh shit, they understand us. That's my culture. That's who they're talking about. right? So it's important to kind of give you that background, and I'm giving you my personal narrative, right? How I came to be a Dodger fan, previously a Dodger fan, and now, like I mentioned on my TikTok, I am retiring my Dodger gear. And of course, let's not forget Mexican Heritage Night, right? They bombard us with this, like celebrating Mexican heritage, El Grito de Mexico. They play corridos, they play like Mexican regional music. So they really do point out culture, right? It's all over there. You got the bacon hot dogs being sold there. You have the micheladas being sold there. So as you can see, the image, right? The narrative is they're down for our people. They're down for Mexicans. They understand our culture. Again, this is the narrative. They invite us to go to, May 10, Mother's Day, September 15 and 16, Mexican Independence Day. So there's so much invested in Mexican culture and the Dodgers. A lot of people associate the two together, right? If you're not a Dodger fan and you're Mexican, you're seen as like, what the hell's wrong with you, right? That's generally the experience that we have. Then we look at mariachis. They have mariachis there all the time. It's part of it. They have live music. They have corridos. They have banda. They have all these things that make you think, wow, they must be down for our people. They must really love our culture because look at how they're representing us, right? And this is kind of the way that I was viewing it. I knew there was problematic, but honestly, it wasn't until that night, September 15, when activists, right, who are raising awareness on this, took the field, right? They took the field. Oh, one last thing I want to mention. Let's not forget demographics. Mexicans make up 76% of the so-called population in Los Angeles County. So again, right, they're using our demographics. They're speaking to the Mexican group of folks, right? I wanted to throw that out there. So when I see the action on September 15, it right away, as a historian, it was like, do you know this history, Citlali? Like, do you know what's really happening? Like, I had a Dodgers jersey, I had a Dodgers hat, I have like a Dodgers sports bag. And immediately I thought to myself, I don't know this. I don't know this. Why don't I know this? And I felt guilty because I had the gear and I was like, shit, like I'm feeling conflicted. I'm feeling like this is, I can't be aligned with this. Like if they're raising this awareness, there's a lot of history that we're not taught. Even though people say, oh, everyone knows this history, we're going to talk about that. That is a lie. Not everyone knows this history. This is not part of K through 12 education. This is not part of the general narrative that we get as people going to schools in Los Angeles, right? They assume it's a given, and it's not. We do not know this history. Not enough of us know this history. So what I'm doing tonight is inviting Melissa, Chente, and you're going to meet the rest of the folks tonight to tell us more about this history. My intention is for them to educate us, right? Educate the community that I have on YouTube, which is about 9,000 folks. Anyone that's interested in knowing this history, we need to know this history. This is our community. These are our people. This could have happened to my family. This could have happened to your family. And there has not been justice served, right? So what I'm going to do now, the next slideshow, I'm going to invite Chente. He's going to be talking about some of the images that I'm going to be showing you tonight, just so that to kind of give you the story on what we're going to be dismantling tonight, deconstructing and exposing this history for all of us to learn. So Chente, do you mind starting us off with this image? Can you explain to the viewers what is happening here?
Well, I think this image itself is very important as it was relevant in 1959 on May 8th when they drug out, Melissa Rechiga's family and evicted them with violence. I mean, when we look at what's happening today, we're looking at the same thing repeat itself, right? So that's why our history is so important with the evictions coming and, the violence of 1959. But in this picture, it also shows too a culture of the police at the time, which were the sheriffs, how they could be used to be instrument. And often we're asked, why is there trauma from the PD, right? Or even the sheriffs? Why are we scared of the cops? This picture says so much in history if you just sit back and look at it. But you know, these three communities in themselves, Palo Verde, La Loma, and Bishop, they started way back before the 20s. We don't have too many of the documents dating that far back, but we know most of our families came from Mexico in a time where in the 1940s and 30s we had things like redlining, right? Where most communities outside of the barrios you could not own. There's documents today in your housing packets that still state that Black, Mexicans, Chinese, Mongolians could not own homes. These were white neighborhoods. So this was already a racist time in housing policy. And then we come to the three barrios, right? And we say, why are they so important to the history? The three barrios themselves were one of the only places where Mexican Americans and really anybody could actually own a piece of land, let alone we're thinking the American dream. Now remember, this is like this little unicorn that we talk about, but we never see, right? And then our families, when they got there, they were able to lay their roots down and stay there for a while and collect wealth and generational wealth by owning multiple properties. In these communities, you also had a panaderia. You also had your own mercadito. You had commerce there. I mean, these were sustainable pictures, right? In this particular picture, you know, we look at just the pain in Melissa's family's face, the children. These were her aunts, her mother, who were actually there at the time. And the traumas that they might have felt, it's just unmanageable of what we see there, right? So these pictures themselves show a lot about the hurt and pain that's left behind in our community. And still, the pain still is existing today. Most of them are still alive today and tell us the stories. Now, this picture is when after they were taken out of the home, and even then, just to show you how powerful our communities were within our grandparents and our parents that grew up and were raised there. They would not leave even if they didn't have their house. But this image itself, when you look at it, you could just imagine in today's time, when we displace someone or evict somebody, they end up becoming homeless. So this cycle of homelessness by removing you from your homes and then making you into homeless, it's endless. It's perpetuating every 20, 30 years. And this picture is very important because this picture will remind us of places like Echo Park and MacArthur Park. And as they criminalize you for having a house and they criminalize you for them making you homeless, now, what are we doing now to the poor homeless now? Criminalizing them again because you're not meant to be here. And on this one, we do see like on the sign where it said Chavez Ravine on it, people used that because that was the legal term that they had put all our three communities in, right? But this was their response to helping the Arechiga family who wouldn't leave the property. Even when taken out by the sheriffs, they defied it by staying rooted into the system. So they brought them a mobile home. And from having a house, having wealth, and a possible future, this is what they ended up with. And for a short period of time. And of course, that was the notice that the Arechiga family got. And we got some of the pictures here of the Arechiga family home being destroyed immediately after their removals. And then the top picture is what our communities look like. That is the ridge of La Loma going over the Solano Canyon. And I believe that's Effie Street and of course, Dodger Stadium. And another important point of the Arechiga's greed and how, you know, when we look at this picture of the LA Times and the Chandler family were totally against the housing projects. They've always manipulated the media, and on here they use the Arechigas if they were asking too much for their land and greed. They were asking for fair market value. And anytime a brown person would ask for that, how dare you? After O'Malley and the rest of the families made billions off their properties. And yet, because the Arechigas just wanted a fair market value in 59, these headlines headed out, which painted them to be some people that were trying to destroy the city of LA, and they're being too greedy. This one also depicts a short part of the story of them resisting and other family members that resisted. The two old ladies in the picture, we don't have their names, but they were also people that were resisting in the meetings and also resisted during the times of the evictions and the letters that were given by the LA Housing Authority. And the Arechiga family always made the headlines, right? Their whole history has been the family that wouldn't budge. And they didn't budge because of their values, right? And it wasn't just necessarily the Arechiga family. Most of the people in that neighborhood did not want to leave. All these stories that you hear that they sold and just left, the city had their scare tactics. The one thing that happened with most people is if you didn't sell, the city would condemn your home. Can you imagine owning your home now, coming to a notice that said, if you don't sell, we're going to condemn, and either way, you're going to lose your wealth? These were the tactics they used to scare, but the Arechigas obviously didn't work on them. And here we have the action that we've seen on September 11th, on the 15th, which really brought a lot of us, this surprise to see that, after hearing the story from Edin and some of the other people that participated in this protest, to bring awareness of our three communities, it just really touched a lot of our people's hearts, our families, some of the elders that were around, including me and Melissa. We kind of talked about it once we saw it. So that's definitely a picture that's going to live in history.
And Chente, thank you so much. What I'm going to do right now for folks who didn't see this, for folks that, I want to remind them of what happened. I'm going to go ahead and show the clip. It's a real quick clip. Then it's going to go over to the clip from Wendy. And then we're going to go ahead and start the discussion. So this is for everybody who missed this. It didn't get as much media attention as it should have, and it deserves. So I wanted to remind everyone viewing, everyone tuning in, this is what happened. This is the action that took place September 15th. So I'm hoping y'all can hear this. I'm going to play it right now. We're going to revisit this tonight. We have the people that participated in those actions with us tonight. I'm going to go on to the next image. You will meet Edin tonight. That's one image from, I believe it was LA Times. And then we have another video of relative Wendy. That's a close-up of her sign. And then really important, which we're definitely going to be educated on this tonight, is the banner that was also a huge display on not Chavez Ravine. And for those folks tuning in, follow buriedundertheblue.com. Check out their website for more information on this and how to contact, how to support. We're going to definitely be talking about this a lot more tonight. This is also going to be discussed. It says Quiche land, the native peoples of this land. And those are the three runners that you were going to be meeting tonight, the activists that amplified this message for the world to see on September 15th. So you are going to get to meet them. If you have any questions, please go ahead and write them in the chat box or email questionmex@yahoo.com. With that, we are going to begin our interview. I'm going to go ahead and stop the share so you can meet and the panel of interviewers. Okay, to begin, I wanted to ask everyone joining us tonight, if you can please introduce yourselves. We're going to start off with Chente, if you could go first, Melissa, and then the rest of the activists that are joining us tonight.
Okay, my name is Vicente Montalvo. My grandparents are Adela and John De Nava from Palo Verde. My mom is Adela Montalvo. And my uncle John were the last ones to be born in 1951 in Palo Verde.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Melissa Arechiga from Buried Under the Blue. My family was my great-grandmother Abrana Arechiga, Manuel Arechiga, my grandparents Juan Arechiga, Nelly Arechiga, my mother Jeannie Arechiga, as well as my cousins Dolores, Ira, Ida, and my tias Lola. And yeah, we had a lot of family there, and they all lived in Palo Verde. Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Melissa. Wendy and Ivette, can you go next, please?
Piyali, Notoka, Ivette Sochillot. I'm Ivette Sochillot, and I'm a community organizer. I'm a mom and just an Indigenous woman trying to reconnect with my roots.
Hi, my name is Wendy, activist, also Indigenous women, just also trying to bring awareness.
Thank you. Jag, do you want to go next? Hang on, you have to, there you go. Okay, go ahead, Jag. We can hear
What's
you.
up, everybody? I'm Jaguar, First Nation Syndicate, longtime activist, Indigenous revolutionary organizer for the unity and the promotion of cultural identity in Los Angeles.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, Jag. And Edin, can you introduce yourself, please?
Hello, everyone. My name is Edin Enamorado. I am a city commissioner, activist, also the former regional field director for Bernie Sanders, and we're also here to spread awareness for everyone.
Thank you, everybody. I think that does it for everybody introducing themselves. Again, I want to thank you all for sharing space with me. This is part of telling our stories. This is part of us reclaiming spaces, voices, and experiences that continue to be denied to us in history, in education, in our daily lives. So tonight is a huge history lesson for all of us, especially those of us that grew up as Dodger fans. As we know, that's a big part of the community that needs to be challenged. We need to know this history. And to begin, some of the questions that I have is for if Chente or Melissa, either one of you, if you can please answer this, is tell us about what happened legally. How is it that this displacement took place? Can you walk us through kind of that narrative that we do not know as far as what happened? Were they offered money? Was it taken? Where does that come in? How was that uprooting of our relatives in those communities? How did that get manifested? How did that come to terms for all the families there?
You want to go, Melissa, or you want me? I'll take it. So the original deal, how it happened was with the city of LA. And the city of LA at that time was trying to build a housing development because of surprisingly homeless and housing issues, right? Kind of the same issues we're facing today, we were facing in 1959. And the one thing that they decided to do was go in and with city planning or the LA Housing Authority is use the word blight to just basically say that our area was no good no more, that this area needed to be redeveloped. Well, with that policy coming in place, they decided to take over the land of Palo Verde, La Loma, and Bishop by the use of eminent domain, which is the taking of land for a public use, right? Mm-hmm. So while in taking the properties, they basically went out and they offered them lower than market rate housing, rate amount for their house. of what it was estimated to be value, but also with scare tactics in it. If you didn't sell, you were often told that your house would be condemned. And so that frightened a lot of the people in the community. And the city then took it to the next level, put the bill, and we had the Red Scare at that time, right? Which they were saying it was communists coming in and they were taking over the housing crisis and they were building free housing and socialism. Well, after that killed the housing, the land was just sitting there. And the city at that point had nothing to use it for, or at least that's what we think it is, right? If anybody knows city planning is always planning ahead of time, ahead of the game. So the old narrative was that the Dodgers were just somehow floating around and they came about and grabbed the land, right? In this sweet deal that if you look at the contract, they gave a piece of a Wrigley field that used to be in the South Central area. And then that piece of land was given in return for a little bit of money for the 315 acres that made up the three communities of Palo Verde, La Loma, and Bishop. But in that deal, there was a legal case. There was a lawsuit in the LA Superior Court. The judge said that the deal between the Dodgers and the city of LA was invalid. And what we know about corporations and their power with money, they appealed it to the California Supreme Court, in which, as of right now, and we're still digging into the files and waiting for them, the California Supreme Court said they didn't even deal with it. They kind of shunned it off. That's what we're getting right now. And in some ways, that should have reflected back to what the original agreement was with the invalid contract. And the Dodgers should have never have obtained the land, right? But the often argument with Dodger fans is, you need to move past it, you need to go. But one key thing we got to remember is this, that if the city of LA obtained the land illegally, right, through eminent domain, because remember, this is one of the first cases where we got public land that was taken away with public money and then was given to a corporation to make money. Eminent domain is specifically for public use, not for personal gain or corporation gain. That's where some of the deception is in the deal. And what we do know is that Rosalind Wyman, who recently received a plaque on the Coliseum, was one of the councilwomen at the time with Kenneth Hahn, who led the way for the displacement of the people of Palo Verde, La Loma, and Bishop. And so when we look at those ideas on how they practice these bad practices, right? I was recently stumbled over a clipping of Janice Hahn, the daughter of Kenneth Hahn, in which, she states, my dad was already pre-talking with Peter O'Malley. So some of this stuff was already pre-done. Now, had that happened in today's political climate, that's a violation of ethics. You're cutting a side deal outside with the private corporation in order to obtain public land. And so our approach has always been this: because the land was taken away wrongfully, illegally from the people of Palo Verde, La Loma, and Bishop, that the Dodgers, in their opinion, may not be directed or indirectly a part of it. But when you have a stolen item from a people, even in laws back then and law today, the rightful thing to do, what the law says, is to return it to its rightful heir if it was stolen. So that's why the story is so complicated, both with the Dodgers, the city, and sometimes why their silence is an admittance of the guilt and the violence that they do to the people of today. Because it was done, it was a raw deal cut behind the scenes, and you just need to step up to it and fix it. That's as fast as we can do it. But again, that's just the deal in a nutshell, and there's other details that will be coming soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And do we have an estimate of how many families were impacted by this in all three communities? Is there like a number that we know about?
Roughly let's say between 1,200 and 1,300 families.
Oh. Wow. Okay, and one of the things I wanted to talk about, I think a lot of folks, especially those people that go to college, take Chicano studies, there's this general understanding of Chavez Ravine, right? People are like, oh, we know about it already, it's Chavez Ravine, right? But at the action, at September 15, there was a huge banner, right? A huge banner that said, not Chavez Ravine. So all those people, right, and I include myself, that's what I had heard, right, the terminology used. And I think it's a great moment for y'all to educate us, right? Why is it not Chavez Ravine? Where does that come from? Why is that not the proper term? Because as we look at this history, there's a play called Chavez Ravine, there's books, there's all these people, right? Even in Chicano studies today, right? That's how they name it. And so for yourselves, you are direct descendants of the people who were impacted in this injustice. And you're educating us saying it's not Chavez Ravine. So can you educate us on this? Because a lot of correcting that people need to do in their history books, in their classroom lesson plans. And, please educate us. Let us know why not Chavez Ravine.
I think this dates back to like what we were talking about, right? Part of what people miss out, and why when I put up the Fernando Valenzuela story, and they kind of said that was such further, it was down the line, it was not even close. And you got to understand the marketing of it. Remember, Dodger Stadium was built at the time for white people within the city of Los Angeles. And then something creeped up on them, right? Which was white flight. And people need to research what white flight was. White flight was the exodus of white people moving from the city into the suburbs. And what ended up happening at that time is the Dodgers' idea in '62 was, God, we got a base of people. They're going to come out. They're going to bring lots of dollars to there, white dollars. And then abracadabra, this magic white flight happens and the people leave to the valley. So what came in were predominantly Latinos, right? Mostly indigenous people moved into the land because that land was it was disregarded by the planning to be, right? And so O'Malley was in the middle of a stadium, and his main audience now, his market audience, happened to be Latino. And so I often tell people, go back in history on baseball. Baseball's rooted in racism. For the members that keep saying move forward, think of this. There were people that sat in those seats that fought for you to be where you're at today, and they did not move forward. Had they had taken your advice of today, you would not be sitting in a stadium that once discriminated against you. So baseball is not rooted in a system where they love you. It's rooted in a system of exploitation. Okay, this is why you see good branding. In 62, 63, 64, as soon as they opened up, one of the first things that Vince Scully said was, welcome to Chavez Ravine. And that's where the branding started by the Dodgers. They understood a couple of things. Number one, the pain was still felt from the Chavez Ravine evictions. The Latinos knew about it. They understood it. And they didn't go to the baseball games until Fernando came along the way. Fernando, you look at the Dodgers and the way they look at branding. That's why in that term, hashtag not Chavez Ravine, and even by the written historical standards, we never identify with tag names or bunched up names, but the actual names given to the three communities, which was Palo Verde, La Loma, and Bishop. Today, you can ask in your Chicano class or just ask around, have you heard of these three communities? As soon as you mention Palo Verde, they go right away down to Torrance and say, man, you guys were rich, you had beachfront property. No, this Palo Verde was behind, and what now today is Dodger Stadium. And that's why we don't use the Chavez Ravine term, and we ask people not to disassociate. That's still branding. That's still feeding into the narrative of what the Dodgers have done, which in a lot of ways, when we look at it, it's colonization, right? You have to disassociate from the pain through marketing. And the Dodgers have successfully done that using the term Chavez Ravine.
Thank you so much. Yes, absolutely right. And one of the things that I think people forget is what was happening to our people in the 50s. And this is before the civil rights movements, outbursts. This is around the time of the Zoot Zoot riots and the Sleepy Lagoon. I know Melissa has educated me, right, on the connection even between the Zoot Zoot riot and what was happening, Palo Verde, La Loma, and Bishop. Melissa, do you care to talk a little bit about that as far as what is the connection between the Zoot Zoot riot and the Sleepy Lagoon and the communities of Verde, La Loma, and Bishop?
Well, technically it should be the sailor riots, not the Zoot Zoot riots, because the sailors were the aggressors. So that's, again, political terminology to change the narrative of our history. So it should definitely be identified and labeled as the sailor riots because they were, again, the aggressors. Now, the individuals, the brown people that were attacked, a majority of them lived within the three communities of Palo Verde, La Loma, and Bishop. But sometimes I think people don't make that connection, because where could brown people live at that time due to segregation? So this is directly where they live. In addition to Vicente's grandfather as well was picked up, I believe, with that roundup for the Sleepy Lagoon, which he would have to share that with you. He knows a little bit more than I do. But yeah, I think it's very important that people do make that connection, because again, they talk about it like they just had the Zoot Suit cruise, right? And then, but nobody connects it. Like, where did those people live? Where did they go? You know, it's like it happens, or and I guess it all happens in a vacuum, right? Even like the Chicano movement, they just kind of like jump around all over the timeline, not really understanding that things happen, in a very strategic way. There's a way that things, have played out. But again, it all goes back to those three communities, because our brown people were specifically segregated to that area. And the reason, the importance of those three communities is because we were homeowners when the law specifically said that we could not own because of covenants. So again, that's why we have to understand the value of what those communities meant. They were like our brown Wall Street.
Yeah, that's very powerful, because in some of the documentaries that are out there and some of the news articles, they keep trying to portray this image of like ghettos and
Shangri-La. Isn't that the word Shangri-La, light, all these, again, these are political terminologies to define something, again, that's why even titles, right? Like even when we talk about Mexican, Hispanic, Latino, Chicano, these labels, these titles mean something, right? Like Latinx. That's why it's very important that you understand how you're introducing yourself, what you're saying, how you say it. Even like when we say the names of the community, because again, that's to remind you, right? Like even when they kill our Black and brown brothers in the streets, what do we say? We go to the streets and we say their names. Why? Because we want you to remember. We want you to remember. We don't want you to forget, because when you do forget, then erasure is complete. Colonization has done its job.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. At this point, I do want to get into the action for, I'm very delighted that all of y'all are here. We have the three runners. Panchebe just joined us, the youth that participated. Welcome. Panchebe, do you want to introduce yourself to the folks watching us?
Hello, I'm Panchebe Manuel Laka. Nice to meet you guys. I was one of the three runners who ran on Dodger's stadium field.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you. And at this point, let's talk about that. Let's go to September 15th, or actually let's go before that, as activists, as direct descendants of this, why did you choose that day? Why, out of all the days, right? Why September 15? Can you get us through the mindset? Like, what was the intention? What was the planning like for y'all? And then if the runners could speak on this too, and then the people that participated also in the banner, that's really important to talk about. Let us know, and also please let us know what was your motivation as an activist, because there's four people that did this. This is a massive action. And what I want people that are watching this to understand, it takes a lot of courage to put yourself in a position that's public, that you're going up against this corporation that has, emotionally enticed our community. The fact that you use yourself and saying, this is the message I want to get across. First and foremost, there's a lot of respect and admiration that I have for y'all. Because as an activist myself, I know what it's like not to be the popular one. It's not a trending, right? It's not a popular thing to speak on these issues. So I want to commend all of you for using your voice, your bodies, right? Your bodies as a way to disrupt that narrative of erasing, the brown experience and the silencing and gentrification of our communities. So as you're answering this, if you can please tell us your personal story to this, right? What personally impacted you about this history that made you participate in that action, which was massive, historical, and will go down in history? You are already part of history. So if you want to start over here, I don't know if Wendy would like to go first. I know you're one of the relatives. I hate the fact that the Native woman again was brutalized by this corporation, right? The disrespect the continuous disrespect to Native women. But the fact that you courageously, you stood there, you did what you did, that's historical. And you did this for so many people. And I thank you for having that courage, relative. Wendy, would you like to share?
Hi, you're welcome. Yeah, I mean, it's just basically, just knowing that this thing is still like going on. It's not like a thing of a past. We still have these struggles, but I mean, just knowing the history and knowing that not a lot of people have the knowledge of it, I just felt it was very important, just to let others know, and be educated on it. And I mean, basically, it's just comes down to that, just spreading out the word and having some justice for these families.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much, Wendy. Edin, do you want to go next? Is it Edin or Edin?
Eden, it's fine.
Thank you.
This is for personally for me, I was going through the Avenue 26 displacement and helping out these families that were displaced in District 1 in City of Los Angeles, and dealing with Councilmember Gil Cedillo voting on anti-protest laws. So when I realized, when someone gave me a sticker, a displacer sticker, that kind of was a slap in the face. Like, hey, you ignored this the first time. This is what the actually thing that happened. And having good friends around and being able to educate me as well with the actual names of the three communities is when to me it was more of a perfect storm of what was going on in District 1 in Los Angeles, and which was for me personally why I did it, which was the Avenue 26 displacement. But like I mentioned it plenty of times before, the displacement of what happened to these three communities were far worse. And the current things that are happening now with the council member Gil Cedillo, and also the future evictions that will be happening in the city as well. So it was a lot of things. And personally for me, I'm not a stranger to these rodeos here in the city of Cudahy. I was a victim of police brutality, and we were able to get the whole police department disbanded in 2010. So, I mean, I'm a firm believer that we could make a change.
Thank you so much. And Panchebe, do you mind sharing your personal motivation? You're a youth, you're one of the youngest folks on here. So that's like powerful to see you take these actions.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, I got my audio mixed up. Here. I took a little bit of notes, but yeah. So for me as a native youth, I kind of wanted to show this as like a kind of like, if I can do it, you can do it, basically, like me as a native indigenous youth. I've been to other native communities. I've attended a Cal Poly Pomona native youth retreat where I got to learn with other native youth and stuff over like a 7-day period. So I got to learn from that like a lot of other native youth perspectives, and I know a lot of them, not a lot, get their voices heard, and some of them are really smart and intelligent, and they're very well spoken. And so me as myself, I kind of wanted to have that like kind of like an inspiration, like kind of like a domino effect, if you were to say, but the reason I ran mainly was because my uncle Jerry Swichi Morishita, he was a Dodger fan, and the way we would connect, kind of like, he would take us to like the Dodger games, and like it would be fun, have a Dodger dog, be with my uncle and shit like that. Oh, sorry for Christian. So stuff like that, basically. So I have a lot of fond memories with my uncle, at Dodger Stadium. So when I did hear about like the news from my dad, from my dad, and then was taught the history by Melissa as well, basically. I kind of saw that, I was like, you know what? If I'm kind of like a Dodger fanish, person, like I like the sport, kind of, I like athletic stuff, sometimes. And so I kind of saw this like, just because I am a fan, or like I do like this, it shouldn't stop me from holding this company accountable, basically, for the wrongs that they did.
Wow. beautifully said. And I think a lot of people that are watching this are also Dodger fans, right? And they don't know what to do with this new knowledge. They're like, what the heck? Like,
Yeah, not saying that the what's it, the team itself, the people, are bad, but like, the corporation and like the big heads behind it,
yeah. Thank you for speaking to that. Absolutely.
Thank you.
And And then also too, I wanted to speak to those that participated with educating the world on not Chavez Ravine. Can you share that experience, your personal motivation, your inspiration, and also that having that experience, right? This is a huge, massive banner that was laid down. So you have the three people running in, right? And then you have this banner coming down on the side. Like, this is a massive action for raising awareness and educating folks. So I know I have Wendy and Jag on here. I don't know if y'all can speak about that, or what was your experience? Oh, hang on one.
I'll let Jaward go first.
Okay. I'm gonna unmute Jag. Can you unmute yourself?
There you go. Right. So everybody, basically, First Nation Syndicate stepped up to the plate, and for First Nation Syndicate's position in this movement is to always find better ways to do what we do. So when we heard what was gonna go down amongst us friends, we started putting the plan together of what would be the most impactful way of doing what we were gonna go do. So we came out with a lot of different ideas, a lot of concepts that um, involved indigenism in the form of, originally we wanted to have four runners. We wanted to come out of the four directions. We wanted to have participation from the local California tribes. Um, we wanted to definitely grab attention, and we knew it came to us, and we knew that if we were able to drop something big enough, something that was going to stand out so big, what I'm saying, apart from the runners, that obviously the masses that were there at the stadium were going to do the work for us by right away taking pictures, right away loading them up to the social media. So we basically came with the concept, we got to drop a really big banner, and at first it was like, it sounded easy, the idea. But then when we started putting it together, it's like, wow, this is a really big banner, It ended up being 4 feet wide by 24 feet long. And we didn't know how to really measure the length that it needed to be, because at the end of the day, we didn't want to hurt anybody that was at the bottom. So we came with very creative ways of calculating and coming out with an estimation to the correct size, and we hit it right on the dot. I mean, it landed like maybe a foot away from someone's head, and it was perfect. When the runners took off, it was a signal. It was a signal for us to release that banner, and it was very exciting. It was scary, what I'm saying, because we were going into the house of the enemy. Even though it's our own people, we're dealing with thousands of passionately blind individuals that are under the influence of alcohol. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, we had that question, like, are we gonna walk out of here? Is it gonna be the cops that are gonna get us? Is it gonna be the security? Is it gonna be the fans? You know what I'm saying? So it provided a very exciting atmosphere, to say the least, But when it all jumped off, when Edin he took off, I just launched everything like the pulling of a trigger. Bam, and everybody went to work, like superheroes, and did what they had to do, Sister Wendy, Sister Wendy did, with Brother Edin, Brother Panchebe, Sister Ivette, helping out with the dropping of the banner, it was just something that was beautifully done, and we saw just like we planned it. It all started coming to life immediately. We just started seeing social media started blowing up. Not Chavez Ravine hashtag started blowing up, started going international. We're like, oh my God, it's going everywhere. We're getting hits from Japan, we're getting hits from Taiwan, from Russia, from Australia, from different states. I'm like, what the hell? It actually worked, and for First Nation Syndicate, being that we like to get involved in things like this to get across the message of decolonization, identity, and unity. And often as revolutionaries that are indigenous, we say we dream We dream of one day having our land back. We dream of one day being empowered to make our own decisions, to have our own wealth, to have our own, to be driving down these crummy streets and seeing a big old temple dedicated to Mother Earth, to the sun. I always have dreamed things like this, and but we realize that giant that we want to go against is very big. It has a lot of power, a lot of money, a lot of weapons. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes it almost seems impossible. See, when we really start calculating, seeing the mathematics to true liberation within stolen land. So First Nation Syndicate figured that, you know what, this is this corporation is a much smaller giant. And if we can tackle this giant, and if we can show our people by example that we could bring down this corporate giant that is fed by the majority of our own gente, because again, it's a reflection of everything. You know what I'm saying? Most of our gente are red, white, and blue, 4th of July, celebrate Thanksgiving. You know what I'm saying? Even though, they say they're Mexican, they're really American by the book, traditionally. So same thing with the Dodgers. When we went going against the Dodgers, it was going to be something that they've been tricked into believing, into caring for. You know what I'm saying? So this is a smaller version of our bigger enemy. And First Nation Syndicate say, you know what, if we can tackle this down, this will be a great example for our people to hopefully empower them and strengthen them to believe in themselves, to know that anything is possible as long as you have courage, you have no fear, some intelligence, and some well thought out planning, and you can do a lot. You can change a lot. You know what I'm saying? And with a little bit of finance, because again, it takes different kinds of work, different kinds of unity, to make things happen. A lot of times, us in the movement, we're tight on our pockets. Unfortunately, we're all living under the in the poverty range. You know what I'm saying? We're all living check to check, rent to rent. Struggling, especially through these times in COVID. So there's never a lot of money, and First Nation Syndicate's never been one to believe that we need to charge for things or anything like that. But it took money, it took courage, it took a lot of different things, and we want to show our people that saying that everyone can pitch in just a little bit, saying, and we can get things done and make enough noise, saying, to maybe change our world, definitely.
So much, Jack, for that. Thank you. Absolutely. I think this action shows our power and so much that can happen, right? When we use our actions, when we come together. Wendy, before I go on to the next conversation, I wanted to ask you for your thoughts, your motivation, your intention. You're an activist, does different actions. What was your take on this?
Sister, is that a question for Wendy or for myself?
Oh,
I think
sorry, Yvette. I'm sorry, Yvette.
No, it's okay. So it's a question for me?
Yes.
Can you repeat the question?
No, your participation, like your inspiration to join this action, what encouraged you to do this? What was your vision like? And what did it feel like, to participate in an action like this?
Okay, so inspiration, Melissa, her story, Vicente, and to know that I see them and I see a part of me, I see a part of my family, and understanding that this is not the distant past like we would like to think. This is a couple generations ago. It's not. People like to think like, oh, that happened a long time ago, get over it. But no, really, the consequences of what happened are still affecting people today, not only including the indigenous people to the land, but also every single indigenous person, whether you're detribalized or reconnecting with your roots or where you come from, it's still affecting us today. And there's a fact that I learned not too long ago, and that's the importance of generational wealth and the fact that families, if someone along the family, right, gets the chance to be a homeowner, that increases the chances of people even going to college. And we are talking over 1,000 families that got that future stolen from them. And the thing is that I'm tired of getting things taken from us. They've taken our identity, they've taken our land, they're taking our history. Like, how much longer can we go on like this? The perfection colonization through 500 years. It's no more, you know. I'm tired, I'm sick. I I cannot, even our own experiences as brown people, we cannot continue to go on like this, hoping the government or someone else from the outside is gonna come and save us. And in my personal experience, I come from a Zapatista background. I am used to seeing things out of the norm work when people come together, when there is collective consensus, when we are creating awareness and really reclaiming those roots. So doing this action was not only important for the past, it's important for the future, because we cannot allow to be erased anymore. And it just comes down to really creating awareness and planting seeds so people can start decolonizing. You know, I know we talk about it so much and we don't really put it into context, but decolonizing is unlearning so much that has been forced upon us. Like the title Chavez Ravine itself, you know, that's something that was forced upon the people, not something that it's really reconnecting what happened with the actual facts of the history. And no one really talks how that is affecting the community today and how that forced displacement continues to happen today. So that's a little bit of what inspired me, what I think, and why I did it. Um, and I just hope that other people, especially our gente, can open up their heart and not only see with their eyes, but they can see and hear us with their heart. Because at the end of the day, we are relatives. It doesn't matter what generation, where you come from, we are related. And it's time for us to unite. And if a baseball team is worth more than your own people, then I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, so that's me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Yvette, for talking about so many points in your response. You know, I think as a community, I think my observation of 25 years of being an activist is that we're not used to seeing brown bodies in confrontation, brown bodies resisting. You know, I think the narrative of, oh, just be quiet, just, you know, be submissive, it's everything's gonna be okay. But obviously, like you're saying, displacements, gentrification, stolen land, it's an everyday reality. You know, there's two things I wanted to talk about before we go on to more questions. Is the question I asked is, why September 15? Why did y'all choose that date? What was the thought behind it? And I also wanted to ask about, there was a relative with a banner that said KIZH, the Keech Native Community. What is the connection, right, with the Keech Native community and the three communities, right? What is that bringing visibility to our Native relatives about the three communities? So if someone can answer that as far as why September 15, and let us know, educate us on the Keech community, KIZH. There was a hashtag, a relative was holding the sign, and tell us a little bit about that story.
You guys want? I can do. I think they can take on the September one and the quiche one. It's we got, you know, our history in LA, because it's been written by the colonizer, has so many lies into it. Okay, and I think when we started doing research and they reached out to us from the Quiche Nation, right now we're currently even still looking and analyzing a lot of the historical documents, and just by the documents that I've seen, it looks like we've been duped again. And I think one of the problems is that we wanted to make sure we did our part in history when we approached this issue of the three barrios of Palo Verde, La Loma, and Bishop, was to land acknowledge the rightful heirs of the land and to try to help as much as we could to set a foundation that would help our indigenous roots, as we know that our lineage didn't originate from these lands, and some of us might have, and we're still on that journey to find out. We just recently found out that there might have been some of the Quiche Nation that was actually in the three barrios of Palo Verde, La Loma, and Bishop. So as we keep going on this journey to rediscover ourselves and the facts, we're finding stuff that is crazy. We're also finding stuff of what the colonizers used us for, right? Which is federal land recognition. And those are some of the motives that they use. So the reason why quiche right now, currently, from what we've been doing our research on with the Quiche Nation, date back further than what the current area we have here of Tongva. And so I know that that's a big debate. I know that's something that needs to come about. It affects us because in what we're requesting back from the three communities, we want to make sure that we pay homage to the rightful heirs of the land. And we would feel horrible through our situation of the three land lots of Palo Verde, La Loma, and Bishop to ever claim land that wasn't even ours, you know? And so we want to make sure that when we do these actions, that we do them in partnership with the true heirs of the lands to be able to correct two wrongs. That if this comes out, you know, to be the truth that the Quiche are the originators here, they should be the ones who honor the land, and we should have a land agreement with them. And that's where we stand with it right now in Amish, you know, just work with them so that we have that understanding, the correction. There's a lot of things that we're seeing going on right now where land is being given back. And I often tell people one day, what we learned in US history is that while the colonizer was in power, it lied. And those lies will come undone, and those rules and regulations will come undone. Those plaques that we see out there will come undone until we get down to the root of the true people of the nation that served here in the LA Basin. So Quiche is out there, and we support them 100% where they're going. We're all in search of the truth. I often tell people, it's not a battle between us. It's a battle for the truth. And the enemy has always been the colonizer and his ways and his policies that alienate us, that betrayed us, and that at the end, just like like the hashtag Chavez Ravine has always rebranded us. And that's an important thing to understand. We're cattle to them. And they will brand us with every title they want. And then if we're not in our own research mind, that we research our data with our people, our information, we're subject to what we see in today's modernization as indigenous people go back to find out their roots, which right now is sad. And then there's deception that we all have to take in, and it's traumatizing.
That's very educational for myself. You know, I'm a historian. I study Indigenous history. So I'm really grateful that you are highlighting that story, because even in Indigenous liberation, you know, we have to honor our relatives, especially those that have been marginalized the most. So thank you. Thank you, Vicente, for that. To the question of September 15, you know, I that one's really sticks out to me, because in Dodger Stadium, they're like, oh, you know, Mexican Heritage Night or Mexican Grito Night. So, you know, is that a reason why that day was chosen? Like, was there anything else happening that night? You know, can someone let us know a little bit of like the mind of an activist, right? Melissa, did you want to answer that one, or?
Well, let's just say this so that it doesn't go silent and we don't hear the crickets. I think one of the most important things to take away from it is that the Dodger Corporation on Hispanic Heritage Night will talk about its accomplishments, and in reality, it talks about its conquerings, right?
Mhm.
But what it won't do is reflect back. And that day on the Heritage, when I went back to see the video, and I seen the only one that ever mentioned, even though I have to say I disagree with Edward James Olmos when he did the Road to El Dorado, because that was even a bad thing by Disney. But he was the only one who mentioned them and let the doors open when he said, you know, that the three communities were here and they led the way to what Fernando was. And that's why we're standing here today, not only honoring him because it was bobblehead night, but I think that's something for Dodger fans to take away. I mean, Heritage Night, and you're not going to talk about this, and you're not going to talk about how it became. And I think that's one thing that we have to take away is, why are we shielding one part of Heritage Month and then just showing you the good parts, the challenging, what you can relate to, right? I think that's something that a lot of us have to digest and understand, because remember, it's multi-complex, right? It's layered from marketing to understanding all this stuff that's happening with us. So yeah, that's what we'll say about heritage at the heritage time. You know, it wasn't the best for all of us that weren't, and so we had to reach out and put our own thing on NBC and other stations that are going to be putting more out as the month goes by.
Thank you so much. And Yvette, you wanted to add some?
Yes, thank you. Um, I also want to speak about the fact that we celebrate Mexican independence that day, right? So it's la noche del 15 de septiembre to the morning of the 16th, when people really said, like, we've had enough, and they followed this Miguel Hidalgo, the priest, and into rebellion. However, I am really asking, what independence? Really? When this happened, like in the early 1800s, and 100 years later, Mexico still had slaves. They were kidnapping indigenous people from Yaqui land to the south of Mexico. And really, they had worse, I don't even want to compare, but the conditions that our indigenous people were being enslaved to were barbaric, you know, it was completely dehumanizing. So we continue to glorify history, like we really have had freedom, and it's an illusion. That's the bottom line. So having the Dodgers and the stadium and Fernando Valenzuela, I kind of feel like we are trophies, you know, like Fernando Valenzuela became a trophy for them, and they get to say, like, oh yes, we honor you, we celebrate you. Like, how are we celebrating really these people? By displacing them? Because not only the stadium robbed the families from their wealth and their potential, but it also has brought over policing of the same Dodgers fans that get drunk in the stadium. So it's just, you know, they come together, and the fact that we did it on the night of independence, Mexican independence, like, again, what independence? That's where I'll leave it right there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yvette. And if I can just share, when Mexico became independent, 70% of the population still spoke an indigenous language. About 90% of the population was indigenous. So that's a narrative for another time. Pero I wanted to talk to you, you know, we have the actions, we have a nonprofit, buriedundertheblue.com. What does justice look like to Melissa, to you, you know, Chente? What are the demands that you have for the Dodger Corporation?
Well, one of the first things that we would like is a public apology from the city and the county of Los Angeles, as well as the Dodgers Corporation, to acknowledge the wrongful that they did to us, and in the violent way that they also took the land from us and inflicted trauma, not just on our families, but also the inherited trauma that a lot of us would inherit generations down. So that's the first thing, is a public acknowledgement. Next, we would like reparations for all the renters and homeowners of the communities, for everybody that lived there, because they used a lot of fear tactics to clear out the land. So everybody that was robbed of their opportunities deserves something. We would also like 3 community centers in the names of the 3 communities of Palo Verde, La Loma, and Bishop, because we do need place and space to organize our communities, because we are lacking so many valuable resources. And we need to be able to organize, to be able to build in the honor of the 3 communities of what they had inspired and hoped to be, so that this way we can help future generations. And then, I mean, there's other things that we want, but for right now, though, it's a good starting place of what making it right would look like.
And I would just add, you know, when we look at these demands, right? It's also to take into consideration our history of the 3 communities, and that is too that when the stadium was built, a lot of like my grandparents went to Palo Verde Elementary School. That school the roof was taken off and the dirt was just pushed in, and there were landfills in which a lot of the kids played in up there. Right? There's a lot of stories of burying their treasures. I mean, these were kids that had active imagination. And one of the things is I would like for them to treat it as an archaeological site. That in the event of any, retrofitting, any new stadium build or digging or any fashion, however this thing may play out, that those artifacts be returned to us for a display. And I think that's important because too often, what we all know about Native American artifacts, they get put in private collections. And really they should be staying with the descendants of the people. And I think that's super important to the whole cause and what's happening. But I think one more important thing that we would request, because this was a deal between the city and the Dodgers, and in their typical deals even today, Mark Ridley Thomas, for those who don't know, and people like Huizar are all in trouble for these backdoor land deals. So those who think that this has gone on and you got to move forward, no, your neighborhood's probably been sold out. This is the story of your neighborhoods of Boyle Heights, Lincoln Heights. You guys are the modern day versions of what happened to Palo Verde, La Loma, and Bishop. And so because of that, one of the things that I will push for with Melissa and the organization is that there be structural policy changes within the city of LA on how eminent domain is used, how the rent stabilization ordinance is used, and to make sure that there's real true equitability. Because those that have seen the charter and have read these, right now you can pick the charter up and read it, and it's plain in your face how unbiased they are towards renters right now and why renters are suffering. That's why when Melissa made the subject of getting reparations for renters and homeowners, the people in Palo Verde, La Loma, and Bishop treated each other with respect, whether you owned or you didn't. They believed in one thing, community. And community didn't have that wealth of money like most people understand it in our communities. While they had that wealth, it was for generation to pass down to keep those communities going. In those community centers, we hope to grab all the things that we learned in our 3 communities that our grandparents have passed on to us, that my mom that's still alive passes on to me from what her experience was, to apply them, to build our own happier communities, healthier, so that they all have their self-determination, especially the youth of today. They must be able to self-determine with the resources that we can provide that they're lacking purposefully by government. Or else, what type of future would we have? And those are the types of things we leave with the Dodger, or the fans. Because as an activist, I've worked on a lot of housing and evictions to help people prevent from being eviction. And someone asked me, doesn't it bother you when they're wearing a jersey in the middle of the interview and you're helping them, and then at the same time they're giving Dodger Corporation money? I tell them this, I go back to what my grandparents always taught us, is that no matter what happens, they are your people and they need help. And because they're blind to the situation now, they may not be blind in the future. And that's what we hope with a lot of the players, that they understand that this is being done for the benefit of all. It's not being done for the benefit of the few. We're all in this because our communities are suffering today from the same symptoms of 1959, and they're relevant today. So take that with you when we ask you guys for support to hold the Dodgers accountable and the city of LA. It's not just the Dodgers, it's the city of LA too.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. I wanted to ask you, the people watching, the people that want to support, the efforts that you are all working on, what are some of the ways that people can support your organization, can support the actions? Can you let them know what are, something that we can do tangibly, taking action? Because I think one of the things that the activism that is being demonstrated here, the vision is that we can do this. This is doable. This is justice that can be served within your lifetime, within our lifetime. And I think, like some of y'all talked about it earlier, we forget that. We romanticize this idea of activism. Oh, like we're under colonization, because we're under occupation. We think that this is that we normalize the way that things are in our communities. But I think people that are watching this, I hope you feel empowered. I hope you feel inspired and know that we have the power to make this happen. If and it doesn't have to take the majority of us. If 20% of us, 30% of us boycott, right? Completely boycott Dodger Corporation, completely stop giving them our money, stop giving them tickets, buying all these things. There's so much damage that can be done with our buying power, with our demographic as folks, as brown communities. And that's something that I think a lot of us don't realize, that we have so much power, but because we're to be quiet and silent and assimilate and just take it all in, you know, we short sell ourselves. We don't believe in ourselves as we should, which is what we're seeing in gentrification all over. I grew up in Cudahy as well. I went to Park Avenue. Our elementary school was built on a toxic dump. You know, the 80s, Edin, I don't know if you remember that. Like, there's so many, you know, environmental racism that we're up against in our communities, gentrification, and it continues to happen. And if we can get justice, if we are people watching this, if you can get those 3 community centers, that public apology, to me, it doesn't look like a big deal for, they're not lose a lot. I think the Dodger Corporation, they have millions and billions of dollars. To me, it's an opportunity for them to say, fuck, we fucked up. We fucked up. We're going to take accountability. We're going to do this because it's the right thing to do by history, right? And to me, why are they so reluctant, right, to even give a statement? They haven't done anything. They don't talk to the media. They don't want to talk to anybody, print media, about this, right? So there's this reluctance to even acknowledge what is happening, right? And I think people that are watching this feel empowered. We have the power. They've demonstrated. Look at the massive action that happened, right? There was a lot of media. I wish more media would have stepped in, but that shows you the power of Dodger Corporation. That shows you the power of their sponsors. That shows you who's running LA, right? What they're invested, fairly invested in it. So anyway, so that, but let us know, how can we support y'all? How can we, I know there's t-shirts, there's tote bags, there's stickers, you know, there's a lot of there's money that goes involved. Like Jack mentioned, this is not free. Like, this is labor. There's money needed to continue these actions, to continue raising awareness. And after that, I'll go ahead and take the questions from the audience. So if someone wants to know, what can we do to support?
So one of the things that we would recommend is that to hit our website, www.buriedundertheblue.com, sign up for our email listing, blastings, because we're going to be talking about or sharing things of ways that you can support us, get involved. You can also, if you are inspired and there's something that calls to you, you're an artist, you write music, you do visual art, something, you know, again, feel free to express it in your form, you know what I'm saying? Whatever your way of doing that is, to also to put it out there, because that's very helpful. Also reposting our media, using the hashtags, because again, there's big money that's being used against us to shadow ban, to block our accounts. Instantly, things were taken down as soon as Edin and Wendy and all of them posted. It was immediately taken down. Vincent's stuff has been, his TikToks have been banned a lot of times, locked. You know, we've had a lot of pushback, and like you say, a lot of the medias, the source outlets, people are scared to talk about this because they don't want to lose out on Dodger money, you know what I'm saying? Because their money is invested in everything. So again, those are just some simple ways. But again, you can always shoot us an email if you have an idea. We'll be sending out massive email blasts too, giving some tips. We're also going to be putting together a petition that we're going to need everybody to circulate in order to sign. Again, to generate support, you can write your city council. We also have some schools out in the valley where the teachers are working with their students right now to write their city council, to hold them accountable. You know, so it's really getting the youth inspired right now to be civically engaged, which I think is extremely important, because those are some of the tools that were removed from LA Unified, because they projected that our kids would be the majority, and they are right now within LA Unified. So they took those skills and those tools away from them. And right now, I think it's very important because we have a large demographic of children that are in LA Unified School District that are unhoused, that they need to learn how to advocate for their own future and their own self. So I think it's very important, and I'm very inspired and looking very much forward to working with these teachers and these classrooms and these young students to write these letters to the mayor, to the city council, to, again, not only ask for them to acknowledge, but also to script legislation that will help to prevent them from ever being in a situation like us and what's going on right now with all the communities. Like Vincent was saying, Echo Park, Boyle Heights, Lincoln Heights, East LA, Koreatown, everywhere throughout Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Those are just some of my ideals, but I'm sure there's other ideals that other people have or Vincent has as well.
One more to add, and important, because of the complexity of the story and how we dealt with it, with politics, financing. I told Melissa down the road, we'll have a couple of classes, sessions, right? Like chapters from the beginning to the middle to the end, so that we have a better understanding, not only of the three communities, but a better understanding of how policy works today. And our goal has always been to try to educate the best we can. My background has always been in politics for the longest time. And we all know that the Latino is the majority. I mean, you're not just the majority in your vote, you're the majority in money. This is the reason why the Dodgers and big corporations all of a sudden now kind of like you. You're seeing tacos pop up in places you normally don't see and things happening. And to some degree, this is where we have to become mainstream. For far too long, we've been controlled. And we are the answer to all of our problems. And the key is we have to organize away from that machine that has kept us very close to it, with money, with lies. And that's going to be hard. You know, when we pull away, it's going to feel weird. But remember one thing, that system has never given you anything but trouble. Okay, and the majority of the people, it has a lot of few people in as examples to be what we would think is rich when it's really not. But I think that's one of the important things to take away, to learn. You're going to be challenged on it. Take it. Understand where your money goes. Wherever your brown dollar goes, make sure it's not being used against you. I always look at the Dodger Corporation because it had Magic Johnson on it, right? And sometimes I look when we make it to a certain level, we should never forget where we came from. And I mean never, no matter how much or how far you get in this world, we all came from the same place. And some even came from further down. And we have to honor each other and take each other up that ladder, because at the end of the day, only we can build that. No one else can. As the majority of the people, we have to wake up. There is no maybe we can win or not. We have to. It's for, if it's not for us, it's for your children's future. That's the most important thing that I think about. Your children, you're laying fertile ground for them. They have to have fertile ground to grow. Without it, they're going to be harvested and used. And I think that's the most powerful thing I take every day with me when I wake up and do community activism, whether we're working on a political issue, housing, or even food vendors or anything. It's very important for us to have all of that. So just subscribe. And if you guys have anything that you want to contribute or collab with us, I don't care how small it is. The idea is that our platform becomes your platform, and that we work with all of you to try to see how we can help promote our stuff, but also promote everyone that needs to be on that, so they have a fair opportunity.
Thank you so much for that, Vicente. I wanted to read two comments, and then I want to read you a question I was received through my email. We have Beauty Diaries by C. She says, you guys are beyond courageous for raising awareness the way that you did. And we have Pedro Melendez, who's saying, you are all heroes. And inspiring. And I'm going to go to the questions by Daniel Padilla. He emailed us. He's from the ethnic studies. He's an ethnic studies teacher at Environmental Charter High School. And he has the following three questions, whomever would like to take it. His questions are, is Buried Under the Blue open to working with schools? Question two, are there any resources that the organization has available for K through 12 students? And lastly, does Buried Under the Blue facilitate or offer informational sessions for schools?
Melissa? Oh. You have to unmic yourself. Yeah.
Number one, yes, we already said we do work with schools, and we've been facilitating Zoom meetings with schools that are open to having space for us, or opening space for us, depending on what the subject is or whatever it is. So yes, and currently the resources, I think, is pretty much the firsthand account of the historical account for them having a primary source. So, I mean, yes to all of them. Yes to all his questions.
Yeah,
And if he's interested in working with us, he can definitely send us an email, and we'll definitely see what we can do and see how we can work together and collab.
And I'll just add to that, the curriculum that we're building right now is, I think, more what he's referencing to, and that's currently being built into a PowerPoint in which we can then, in a series we can adapt it to whatever the curriculum is needed for the classroom, because I know that sometimes they're pressed for time, but if need be, we have one that's being built now and then will be available for teachers. So they can either do it by themselves, or if we're available, we can definitely come in and give the oral history and Q&A similar to what we're doing today.
Awesome. One of the viewers asked if you would like to work with or probably reach out to Julio Urias, sorry, the Dodger player. And then following up on that, is that something that's ever been done? Have any players from the Dodgers ever reached out to your organization or people's?
Well, I'll say this, not publicly, but I want people to remember, and those that are Dodger fans that are out there, it's something that we grew up with. Our goal is never to take away the accomplishments of El Toro, Fernando Valenzuela. The talents that he had were great, and often we don't look at the players as being the problem, but also victims of the corporation. And a lot of people, if they do their research on Fernando, he was used a lot, if you look at the history. And Urias, definitely the same thing. I mean, we're open to all of them. I mean, we had Kaepernick come out and kneel. Will Urias come out to the mound and kneel? I don't know, but we often ask our Latino media people, George Lopez, Danny Trejo, I won't say one of the other names, but he's in Elysian Valley. And these people are what right now, currently, we have a base of our only mainstream Latino actors. And I know in some ways, I'll say this in defense of them, because I've been on both sides of the aisle. Most of them are afraid of being blackballed by the colonizer, right? They're still using them for movies. We don't have our own group of Latino actors that are stuck together from the barrio that are going to take barrio issues. Danny Trejo is one of the only ones I've seen go up. So we're definitely open to working with any of them, because I think at this point, it's not just about us, it's about all of us at the end of the day, right? And what we can contribute. We're the change, but we got to use our platforms to be positive. And even if it makes us uncomfortable and unpopular with our base, but maybe the base will change one day.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you for that. In wrapping up, I wanted to go around, if you can all share like your any, last thoughts that you want to share with the viewers, all of you who are doing something very historical, doing something very courageous for our communities, showing as role models to us, right? What activism looks like for brown folks. We're not used to this, right? When people saw y'all taking the fields, and I'm telling you, because I got so many text messages that night, people calling me, did you see that? I was like, yes, I saw it. And it's like, we're not used to it. So it's like, those of you here, just go around and just tell the viewer any last thoughts you want to share, right? If there's anything that you think we left out or you wanted to amplify before we close tonight's interview, please, we'll go ahead and start with Ivette.
Thank you, sis. I lately, I can get out of my head the prophecy of the eagle and the condor. And I know not everyone will be familiar with it, but if you are not, Google it. It's time. It's time for us to come together. It's time for the entire continent to identify as one and understand that there's no going back, but going forward. When the ancestors spoke of the time that the sun will shine on us again, I think we are at that point. But we cannot move forward if we don't know where we come from. And this is part of our history and our everyday life, because the stadium is in our community where our children are growing up and where your children will grow up and where your children will probably have children. So how much longer can we let this go on? How many types of violence can we continue to go through and then just to be erased and it's really a call to action to stop fighting one another and really unite and understand that there's only one enemy. It does not have a face, it doesn't have a name, but it's an entire system deeply rooted in white supremacy. And that's what we need to focus, because none of us is going to be free until we are all free. So just thank you, sister, for having us, for allowing us to share a little bit of us and just create awareness on this very, very important issue. Gracias, Kamati.
Ashlen, Plaskamat. Wendy, are you up for some words, relative?
Everything that the sister Yvette said, totally agree on it. Plain and simple.
Thank you so much. Panchebe, you want to share some words?
Like just like my last final kind of words to the viewers.
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
Don't choose the corporation over your people. Don't be a lame. I don't know if I'm leaving too early, but I do have some homework that I have to do. So I'm glad and I appreciate that I was able to come on here, and thank you all for being here. Yeah.
Thank you.
But
Edin, do you would like to go next?
Sure. I think what Panchebe was perfect. People over profit, and it's sad that it took this for a lot of folks to know the true history. And a lot of folks say, well, why until now? It's these, the families from these three communities have been doing this for the past 50 years, 60 years. So it's just sad that it took this drastic measure for folks to get reminded, and some folks to catch wind of it for the first time ever. And we're going to continue the work, never stop believing. Like I said, we've been able to disband corporations, disband police departments before that were corrupt. And you're always going to have folks like us, thanks to the folks that, paved the way for us. And we will continue paving the way for others. And yeah, so I think this is just the beginning again. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Jag, would you like to go next, please? Hang on one second. You gotta unmute.
Oh.
Jag, are you there? Jag?
Yeah, there you go. We're back. We're good?
Yes.
I want to say that this is a war of giants. And different giants that are at play in this war are powered by different things, mostly money, in the capitalist society and reality that we live in. Our giant also has the same power, but our giant is asleep. Our giant is bickering amongst itself. It's fighting. It's putting each other down like crabs in a barrel. Our giant is confused. Don't get it mistaken, raza, mi gente. You have the power. You, with your $9 million that you give at every game, have built the success of the Dodger Corporation. When you go into that stadium and you see the big immensity of lights and power and showmanship and ability to amaze your every sense, that's something that you created. That's something that came out of your pocket. Now the decision that you have to make is, am I going to make this corporation wealthy and continue to make it more powerful? Or am I going to turn around and give this to my own people, to my own community, and give our own community the opportunity to be just as strong, just as powerful, and recontrol the narrative of our destinies and our futures for everyone that's coming ahead of the life in this world that we live in. You know what I'm saying? We have the power. It's in your pocket. It's in your money. It's your dollar that you're using, you know what I'm saying, to fund the person the enemies who have brought trauma, pain, suffering, and forced poverty on our people. Los Angeles has a very ugly history from its creation, from when it was in the hands of Spaniards in Mexico to when it got taken over by the U.S. So much horrible things. Our people didn't end up on that hill because it was a nice place to live. Our people ended up on that hill because it was the only underdeveloped area with no running water, with no pavement, with no nothing. And it was just a place to put the slaves, to keep them close to master's house to come down and work. We made it. We, with our own strength, with our own dignity, with our own perseverance, we lifted ourselves up. We built those communities as a people. Nothing was given to us, and then it was all taken away from us. You know what I'm saying? Our generational wealth is the most important. We need to work forward into strengthening that for the future of our youth. You know what I'm saying? And we can't forget the three neighborhoods. We can't forget Palo Verde. We can't forget Bishop and Loma, because they're just a small example of what we've been through. You know what I'm saying? And if we forget about them, then we're just condemning ourselves. That's all it is. That's all there's to it.
Thank you so much, Jag. Thank you. And Melissa, any last words?
No, I just want to say thank you, that I'm extremely indebted and grateful to these Indigenous revolutionary peaceful warriors that made this action, that brought this awareness, that put it on the line, because we had been doing the work, but thank you for spotlighting it, highlighting it with your bodies. Thank you. And, just like as we seek justice for the three communities, we seek justice too for the violence that was inflicted on you guys as well. And we will see this all the way through, for future generations, for the future projects, for Avenue 26, for the children in the cages, for the children underneath the residential schools, for the pipelines, for all of these things, the prison to pipeline, all of these things are all interconnected, and so this is why, I'm extremely so grateful to them, again, for putting it on the line, for, saying that we are powerful and hopefully inspiring the next generation. And I look forward to working with you guys all the way to the end so that we can really have some change that'll help our future generations and the children for the next 7 generations. Classico Mate.
Skamati. And Chente, Vicente, your last thoughts, your last words for.
Man, how do you come back from such a great closure? I should have waited to the end. I should have been next, but no, I have to echo what Melissa said, and thank you, Mexican Excellence, for the platform, and our warriors for sure. You guys paid your honor, and what, like, my parents and most of you guys met my mother that night that you guys were released. I mean, those images will stay in her head forever. She was proud when she came back. I think what you guys installed in people was hope. And I think that's one of the greatest things that you guys could give people nowadays that are so disillusioned in what's happening in our communities. It's one of the hardest things I have to install in people, just to get them to fight for their basic rights, And I think it's just an important model that people like Edin, Ivette, Wendy, and especially Panchebe, being the youngest one out of all of them, is exactly what we fight for, and is exactly what's needed in today's world, so that we can correct some of these issues. And I think it's in each and every one of you, even if you're a Dodger fan. These are things that you can come out and do, and put your differences aside and look at the needs of your family. I often tell people a Dodger game is, or being a Dodger fan, sometimes like a drug. You get a high off of it, right? In their last 2 losses, you probably felt sad. Oh my God, they lost in their last 2, right? After the end of the game, and if they make it to the World Series or they don't, all you're left with are those memories and the debt at the end of the day. And that's what a corporation does. That's when you've been had. There's been a lot of people that have had to deal with that had $1,000, $2,000 debts for jumping into it. But I think one thing is clear. When we look at that, we have to ask ourselves, what does that leave our families? Where does it leave you at? And where do you want to be? And what do you guys deserve? It's your right to have these things. And you should be able to enjoy them. But at the same time, you have to be aware that corporations never have your interest at heart. Okay, I put out an article that was very important. when Magic Johnson literally called out developers to hit urban areas. And I put it out for one reason. These are the people that you love. And it's almost disheartening to see that you would stay with an abuser. But that culture is inevitable amongst our Latina women. We know how dangerous that is. And sometimes we have to look ourselves as males and say, God, look at us. Why are we doing it if we find this out, right? So I leave that with you guys to think about it, but take it to heart. And we appreciate everyone for being here today. And I can't thank Mexican Excellence enough because I enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, Chente. And Edin, I see your hand raised. Would you like to add some words, please?
Sure. Just wanted to pick off of what Vincent said. Yesterday when I was speaking with Wendy, I was telling her a movie that changed my life on the way I seen sports, which was A Bronx Tale. So there's a quote when the older man tells the little boy, he says, if your father can't pay rent, you think Mickey Mano's gonna care? If your father can't pay rent, is he gonna come help you? If Mickey Mantle doesn't care about you, why you should care about Mickey Mantle? And ever since then, I stopped being such a hardcore fan for any sport. And I think ever since I seen that movie as a kid, that helped transition from me being a fan for so long to being able to doing the right thing. So I recommend anyone who's in that position and you're a hardcore fan from the Dodgers, let's say tomorrow or next week, you can't pay rent. The city of LA is going to kick you out and the Dodgers are not going to care about you. Yet you could have saved all those thousands of dollars from the World Series tickets or the playoff tickets and the micheladas that cost $20 towards yourself and instead of just wasting your money on that. Just wanted to add that. So it's a Bronx Tale, and it's just a scene that changed my life and the way I seen sports.
Ivette, you want to add? You wanted to share some thoughts?
Wendy and I would like to give a shout out to Sugar. She is our prima who recorded the video that went viral. So Sugar, we love you.
We love you.
We love you.
Shout out to Sugar. Shout out. It's very important. Just to wrap up, again, I want to thank you all for the work that you are doing. It continues to inspire, to motivate. It continues, and it's something that I know it's going to happen. I know that the energy we're on, what's going to happen. Our ancestors are with us. Our ancestors are guiding us. And it is time that we get land back. Land back is not just a metaphor. Land back is not just a rhetorical statement. It's real and it's happening. And it's because of warriors like yourselves that this is going to be a reality. Just like the, Arichega family and Chente's family, all of us have been displaced from our homelands. All of us are displaced from our ancestral, connection to this land. And you are the living example of how it is possible, and I manifest to our ancestors, to the universe, that land back is going to be a reality. So thank you so much. I wanted to let folks know, go to buriedundertheblue.com. You're looking at the t-shirts. They have beautiful t-shirts of resistance. You can also follow them on Instagram, Buried Under the Blue. For t-shirts, they have tote bags. Spread the message, let people know, share this video. This video is going to be also available as soon as we're done recording. I'm going to put some links on there. Chente has a link tree with amazing resources, with documentaries, with things that we can do as a community to support this. So everyone, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for sending your questions. Thank you all relatives who are joining me tonight, and we hope to have you back soon. Hopefully we can have more people come out here, more questions at your time. You can also use this channel whenever you like. I'm extending that to you all so that we can keep bringing out the message and amplifying this. Land back is real. Land back is not a metaphor. Our people deserve justice. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a beautiful, beautiful night and rest of your evening. Good night.